In today's video, I review Dr Zyrowski's video on how to reduce gut inflammation. Roll the titles.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before I jump into the video, just a quick reminder that I'm now offering the SIBO organic acid stool tests and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests, as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video.
Now, first is going to be increased food reactions. Okay, so if you're going about your day-to-day eating and you are realizing that you start reacting more and more to the foods that you really love, then there's a good chance you have a lot of gut inflammation, okay?
So before I jump into anything else, I quickly need to explain what inflammation is, because it's a subject that confuses many. So inflammation is simply your body's defense reaction. So inflammation occurs when your immune system detects damaged cells, irritants, pathogens, and then it tries to begin the healing process. So the first thing that I will say to Dr. Zyrowski's comments on food intolerances and inflammation is that there is no evidence whatsoever to suggest that inflammation causes food intolerances. As I said just now, inflammation occurs when your immune system detects damaged cells, irritants, and also pathogens. So essentially, if you don't have irritants and pathogens where they shouldn't be in the gut, then you won't get inflammation. Inflammation is a response to a problem. Inflammation is not the root cause of the problem. So for example, if your stomach acid is high and you are not liquefying foods correctly in the stomach, and the stomach acid isn't strong enough to trigger digestive enzymes and bile release, well then your food isn't broken down properly, and then the undigested foods and proteins will trigger inflammation. Inflammation does not cause food intolerances. Inflammation is simply a response to undigested foods and proteins in a format that the body doesn't recognize. If inflammation caused food intolerances, well, you could simply take an anti-inflammatory and the problems will go away, but they don't.
Reactions may include something like bloating after the meal, swelling, aches, pains, a lot of different things showing up. Okay, if you're having reactions to your favorite foods, then we want to look at gut inflammation.
Again, abdominal bloating is caused by lots of different factors, such as stomach acid issues, infections such as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or C. diff infections, bile issues, digestive enzyme insufficiency. So bloating is not caused by inflammation. Inflammation is simply a response to these problems in the gut to help the body heal.
Intolerance to sugar and starches, unpredictable aches, pains, and swelling. So if you just find that, after meals and after you eat certain foods, that you start having swelling, maybe in random places in your face, your hands, your feet, your leg, wherever, you start getting some swelling, you get random aches and pains, then there's a good chance you have gut inflammation and you're having reactions to the foods that you're eating.
So if you are intolerant to sugars or starches, then it is due to things like carbohydrate malabsorption or SIBO infections. Inflammation in the gut will not cause an intolerance to sugars and starches, and there is no credible evidence to suggest this.
Frequent bowel movements, you're running to the bathroom all day, excessive gas, diarrhea, and constipation, okay? And a lot of times it's alternating between the two. So IBS-like symptoms, basically. Now, when we look at these two issues, a lot of people face this, and a lot of people, it's crazy to me how many people just have diarrhea day in and day out, and they just think it's part of normal life. It is not good. There's a massive amount of inflammation in your gut. Your gut is very unhealthy, and we have to make changes. Like I said, gastrointestinal cancer is going to be one of the major health crises, and the statistics are already showing up. When we look at all these different gut conditions, we're already heading in that direction. It's not as if it might happen. It is happening. It's clearly happening.
Absolutely agree. Digestive diseases are increasing at an exponential rate. But again, inflammation is not causing bowel movement problems, excessive gas, or constipation type issues. These are caused by physiological issues in the gut as well as gut infections. Inflammation is simply a response to these issues, like I keep saying. It is not the root cause of these problems.
So the real danger is this. The real danger is that once your gastrointestinal health crashes and goes downhill, it starts to impact your whole body. Thyroid issues, major issue in today's society. Diabetics, okay, there's not a diabetic out there who doesn't have gut issues. When we look at brain health, a lot of brain health issues. Your gut and your brain are very closely connected, and as a matter of fact, I did a video on that, and I'll put it in a link in the description here below so you can check that out. So when we look at your gut in general, it's so interconnected with your entire body. Your immune system, for instance. Autoimmune disease and autoimmune conditions are off the charts right now. Guess where 80% of your immune system is located? Right within your gastrointestinal tract. So your gastrointestinal tract, if it is unhealthy, will destroy not only your gut health, but it'll destroy your really health in its entirety. So we want to make sure that we're going and making changes in order to stop the gut inflammation and stop the havoc it's going to wreak on the rest of the body.
So again, absolutely agreed. Problems in the gut can cause issues in the wider body. But again, just to reiterate, as it needs reiterating, inflammation is a response to trauma or infection in the body. Autoimmunity is often driven by undigested foods and proteins and other compounds getting into the body, and then the immune system responds as if these were invaders. But again, there is zero evidence that inflammation causes autoimmune problems. It is simply a response by the immune system to trigger healing.
Now let's talk about making changes, because of course this is why you're here. You have come here to realize that you need to make changes, and then you want to know how to make them. Let's talk about the food that you eat, okay? The food you need to eat versus the food you need to avoid. First of all, we need to follow a non-inflammatory diet. We have inflammation in the gut, we need to follow a non-inflammatory diet. If you're not familiar with what that is, I'll put a link to the non-inflammatory diet that we use in the description below. So you need to follow a non-inflammatory diet. That's one of the first things. Now the next thing you need to do is you need to really make sure that you're pulling out all the processed food, all the junk, all the sugar, getting rid of that stuff. I know that for some people it may sound obvious, but for a lot of people it's not so obvious, because most food has a lot of toxins and fillers and foods that you love, foods that you wouldn't expect to have it. We have to really be diligent with the food that we're eating, making sure that we're removing all the processed food, all the garbage.
Agreed, if you want to reduce inflammation, then you absolutely need to consume a diet that is anti-inflammatory in nature. So fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes, and so on. If you have a C. diff infection in the gut and you eat an anti-inflammatory diet, well then clearly it's not going to fix the problem. So you fix the issue by removing the infection so that the foods can help the inflammation go down.
Next thing we need to do is we need to keep a food journal, okay? Write down all the foods that you think you might be having a reaction to. Write them down and then work on identifying those, because if you eat one of your favorite foods, let's say it's strawberries. Let's say you eat strawberries and you have a lot of cramping and pain after. You write strawberries down. Let's say that you really like having some other type of food. Let's say that you like having a certain vegetable and you notice that you have a bad reaction from it. Write it down. And then what you do is you start avoiding all these foods that you're having bad reactions to. And you'll know the reactions because it's going to be in the form of this, okay? It's going to be in the form of diarrhea. It's going to be in the form of pain and discomfort, aches, pain, swelling, okay? A lot of times it's going to be foods like breads, it's going to be a lot of starches, carbohydrates, sugars, and of course processed foods as well. You know, foods that you're buying that has over 50 ingredients in it and you don't even know what half of them are.
Foods that contain additives and preservatives, absolutely agreed. But the rest of the comments there are very poor guidelines to follow. So if you have developed intolerances and then you just start randomly pulling these foods out of your diet, then it can cause your body to become hypersensitive to these foods and also the compounds within these foods such as oxalates, histamines and salicylates. You fix intolerances by removing the infection or fixing the physiological issues that is causing your gut to be intolerant to a particular food. You don't just randomly pull foods out of the diet, especially when you don't understand what you are doing.
Next thing we want to do is reduce stress. This is very important because people who have excessive stress in their life are going to have a more acidic gut typically, and they're also going to have things like ulcers. They're going to have just a lot of imbalances. And so stress drives inflammation, and inflammation that is already in the gut with stress is not a good combination. So we want to make sure that we're using stress reduction techniques. People who have day in and day out stress and high amounts of it, it's just, chronic, it's going to really destroy the gut health. So we have to be careful with that.
To explain this again, I will use the water bucket gut analogy. So if your gut is healthy, foods and compounds go into the gut, and then these waste products are excreted from the gut and body. When you have gut issues and the compounds and foods aren't being broken down correctly, well then they can build up in the gut, and after a period of time the water bucket starts to overflow with things like histamines and oxalates. And when this bucket overflows, you develop all manner of symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, vertigo, gas, bloating and so on. Now, the reason why you don't just pull foods out randomly is that when your bucket is overflowing, you could associate those symptoms to a food that you have just eaten. The reality of it is more likely to be the cumulative effect of the foods that you have eaten over the previous few days and not the foods nearest to the reaction that you are having. So absolutely do not pull foods out of your diet unless you know what you are doing. Otherwise, it can create many additional digestive problems.
Proper nutrients. Now, it's very important to make sure that we're putting in the proper herbs and nutrients that are going to stomp out that inflammation. What we want to do is we want to use these nutrients in clinically relevant doses, but we also want to make sure that we're using a couple to work synergistically to really give us a huge impact when it comes to reducing inflammation. The first one I really like to use is L-glutamine. The next is arabinogalactin. Next is licorice root extract. And then the last is going to be aloe vera. These all work very, very well at healing the gut lining and also reducing inflammation in the gut. Clinically relevant doses are so important here because a lot of people will go and they'll try to use these things and they'll do it in doses that basically mean nothing. You know, they don't even scratch the surface to reducing inflammation. So
Yep, no issues with what was said there. Stress can absolutely decimate your gut health and you have to do whatever you can to reduce it. Again, agreed, many people know that glutamine can help heal the gut lining. However, many people take it in such small amounts that it won't even tickle the side of the problem. So don't just throw random supplements at a problem if you don't know what you are doing. Work with an experienced healthcare practitioner.
Now, the last thing is we have to look at a realistic time frame here. Now, it's very important to make sure that when we look at just healing in general, let's say, but especially gut healing, it takes time. Now, a lot of us, you know, when we come across different things in life, we want it and we want it to happen now. We want to lose weight overnight. We want to gain muscle overnight. We want to, you know, achieve our goals overnight. But the fact is it takes time. Now, for most of us, you know, if we have destroyed our health in any way, we've done it over many years, 10, 20, 30 years. So the idea that the reversing this issue is going to happen overnight is just really crazy. So we want to make sure that we're understanding that it will take time. We have to understand that, especially if you have ulcerative colitis, gastritis, some of these different issues, I've worked with pretty much all of them. In some cases, they can take a very long time to go and really, really get great results with. So we have to start today. That's the most important thing, is starting today, and then putting in the time, putting in the effort, putting in the hard work in order to really improve our gut health over time so we can avoid things like gastrointestinal cancer, which is really a major problem in today's society. So
yes, absolutely. Humans love the path of least resistance, and they will always choose to do what is easiest and not necessarily what is right. So you have to be patient with illness and understand that the greater severity of the problem, the longer it can take to resolve. There is no magic pill or overnight fix in most situations. So that's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.